forgive me if I missed it and you already stated it, but why are you not just seeking a straight 50-foot by 210-foot rectangle with this split? Just the split going all the way to the back fence?
If we do just the 50 feet right to the back of the fence, the lot could handle probably one duplex or one single-family residence with a deep back lot, and that would leave the space behind the two of them. I should probably have Brenda address this because she knows this better than I. But basically, we would be retaining the option for somebody to do an infill with a duplex in the back part of the lot under this code. So you could build something in the front that would fit with the streetscape, and then you could have something in the back. And there are 3 duplexes along the back property line already, so that would still retain the character. But we want to be able to retain the option for whoever buys that piece of property to be able to develop it to the maximum density that is allowed by the city and is, in fact, desired by the city. If that makes sense?
Go ahead, Ellen.
It makes sense, and then, you know, there's a follow-up that begs to be asked. Then if we create this possibility for creating a duplex in that back part as well as the street frontage duplex, it seems like that would require the 20-foot driveway and all the assorted problems that would come with the flag lot that you mentioned before.
Yeah. Well, if that is a 50-foot wide lot, then there are options other than putting that driveway against the west property line.
Okay, just, thanks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I have the identical question. You said earlier, you've now said 2 things that I'm concerned about. First, you said that the existing lot could have, without subdividing, 3 duplexes on it. Is that what you said earlier?
Yeah.
And then you just said that you could develop a duplex in the back. But the code provides that each duplex lot, each 2-family dwelling lot, requires 7,000 square feet and 60 feet of road frontage, unless it's a flagpole lot. So I'm having a very hard time understanding. I mean, what you have right now under the code is the ability to have a single family home or a single 2-family home. If you tore down the existing structure, you could have 5 townhomes, or you could have your flagpole lot. But I don't understand why you think without subdividing you could have 3 2-family dwellings, or even how you could have
it's my understanding, and I might defer this to my realtor, it's my understanding that under this current code in R3 and R4 zones, you do not have to have separate lots for the buildings, that it could be developed based on the number of square feet that are there, so you could have 2 duplexes on the same lot.
Well, it's characterized as lot requirements, minimum lot areas and minimum lot width. I don't know how we get around that. But that would clearly require a variance. Unless
Rebecca, you
has
want
a
to
different
address
understanding.
that for us, please?
Well, so the minimum lot area for a 2-family dwelling is 7,000 square feet. So if a lot is 14,000 square feet, they can have 2 duplexes.
Assuming it has 2 separate 60-foot frontage area, or linear frontage. Because the 2-family dwelling also requires 60 feet of frontage.
You're talking about the minimum lot width?
Yes. I mean, lot means the same thing in both cases. It is talking about a legal buildable lot. That's the reason we use that word.
Yeah, I guess I'm unsure whether or not the 60-foot lot width would have to be doubled when there's 2 2-family dwellings.
Doesn't it say per each one?
It
It says per.
It does.
Which means you could do it with a square lot, but the more rectangular it gets, the harder it gets to put multiple
Right.
structures on it.
Other than with the flagpole lot. I mean, you can build 2 of them with a flagpole, or 1 of them without. That's pretty much what we've got, short of the variance. Right?
Yeah.
I just want to make sure we all understand that point. Okay, that's all I had.
Okay.
Okay, you lost me on that one, but,
I think that what I'm saying is you have the capacity right now to have a single duplex on your lot, period. And if you have a flagpole lot, you can have two. Short of a variance, that's all you can have.
okay, well, it's my understanding that you don't have to have separate lots for them, but
The code's
Yeah.
pretty clear, I think.
Is that how you see it, Rebecca?
I'm trying to think just a
Okay,
second.
all right.
I think I'm going to have, I think I've got to disagree with Jerry. I believe if you have a 14,000 square foot lot, you can have two duplexes,
The requirements,
60 foot.
you have
lot.
two requirements. You have a minimum lot area requirement and a minimum lot width requirement, and you have to meet both requirements. So each individual lot with a two-family dwelling must be 7,000 square feet and must have 60-foot frontage on the road.
Okay.
And just, you didn't hear who I am, but I teach land use law at the law school, so I have some measure of
background here.
experience in this. Not just trying to guess here. And actually taught Rebecca. Sorry, Rebecca. But I just want to be clear you understand what is I don't want you to be operating under a mistaken assumption about what could happen here.
yeah. Well, it's my opinion that when you have a conflict of interpretations, that is an issue that certainly should be settled, and I'm not sure whether or not this is the appropriate body to settle it, but this probably isn't the right time, and if necessary...
Ma'am, you can believe me or not, I'm telling you there is not a conflict of interpretations. There's a single interpretation. I assure you.
Okay.
All right, well, Kit, should we go on and see if we can, Brenda, would you like to speak? We got another person here on approval of this. Why don't you come on up and address us? Please state your name and your address, if you would.
I'm Brenda von Rushka, and I'm representing Kit in selling this property. I live at 1827 Daves Avenue, and I'm an associate at Moscow Realty. I had several meetings with Mike Ray, City Planning Department, and it's my understanding in conversation with him that you need 7,000 square feet on a piece of property. For every 7,000 square feet, the city allows you to put a duplex on that property. So this lot is approximately 23,000 square feet. Therefore, the existing house could be converted to a duplex, and one could put two additional duplexes anywhere on that lot as long as you meet the front, back, and side yard requirements. And it's not something that is just for this particular lot. I can't give you exact addresses, but several such properties come to mind. There's one on Kenneth Street on the south side of the road, pretty close to Blaine Street, where there are two duplexes on one lot and then a duplex on another lot. And the two duplexes are on 14,000 square feet, and I was associated with that. We did a lot line adjustment in order to correct that because the zone had changed. So with three duplexes next to each other, and did a lot line adjustment so that we could make 2 on 1 and 1 on 1. And then several duplexes on east of Mountain View, off of F Street, that were developed by Karen Stubbs in around 2002, where there's several duplexes on one lot. And the discussion arose when Joel Plaskon was city planner, and it was rather extraordinary when they did it, but they also measure, this city does, measure the front yard setback from the corner of the lot. So imagine you had a square like this, they measure the front yard setbacks from that corner. So the language of the code is pretty plain, but the way the city has been interpreting it since the time of Joel Plaskon, they've allowed that to happen in the city. So it's happening right now, despite what the actual language says.
Okay, thank you.
Someone could probably get Mike Ray on the phone.
Well, here's our situation. Kit, we've heard your testimony. Unless you got more that you want to add, I'm going to let you sit down and go through the protocol of asking if there's anybody else that would like to talk. So,
Okay.
if you want to do that, then, and the audience, the TV audience doesn't see it out there, but the only two folks that we have in the audience is Kit and Brenda. But for protocol purposes, I'm going to ask if there's anybody else that would like to give any testimony towards this public hearing, either for, against, or general comments. Please come forward at this time.
Then I have a comment.
Hearing none, I'm fine with it, and I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing now. And Evan, you've got the floor.
My comment was we wouldn't have to close the public hearing, too. We could deliberate, and then, leaving it open, you could ask them to come back up, to clarify something. So, doesn't make a big difference, but,
Well, I think what we'll do is we'll go ahead and move on as a board and discuss it. Mark? I'd like to hear your comments.
Is a flag lot required to have only a 20-foot wide strip on its frontage? Or can it be wider? It can't be wider?
Rebecca, do you know the question?
I'm sorry, what was that? How wide can the flag lot drive be?
Yeah. Can it be
It's a
50?
minimum of 20.
That's a minimum, though.
Hold on just one second. Let me.
Is there a maximum on it? I guess it's a
Minimum distance of 20 feet, and it just says it shall not be less than 20 feet in width at any point. So
Okay.
there's no
But-
maximum, I guess.
Couldn't this be
There would-
considered
there
a
would
flag
be a-
lot with its 50-foot width?
Well, I guess the only other thing I have to add is that a curb cut is limited in width as well to,
Right.
to 20 feet. So you're asking if the 50-foot could qualify as a flag lot? I guess if they had a 20-foot drive, as long as the drive was only 20 feet in width. No,
I
no,
think
it
the answer
cannot.
is-
It cannot be a flag lot. It has to be just accessed by a 20-foot drive all the way back.
I think the answer is, I'm not disagreeing with
The
Rebecca.
definition of a flag lot.
I think it's that you couldn't build within that. However wide
That's
it is,
right.
you couldn't build within it.
Still would have to build on the back part of it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Just because you wouldn't have the...
Because it would be the access
Room.
point. It would not be the
Do you want me to read the
buildable
definition?
envelope. Yeah, go
Yeah,
ahead.
that'd be great, Rebecca,
A
would you
lot with
please?
access provided to the part of the lot designated for use as a building site by a narrow corridor.
So the building site would be in the back part,
Right.
and that would be the part designated to build on.
Rebecca, what are the setbacks for the back end of the flag lot? Are they still subject to front, side, and back lot
Yes.
widths? Which are,
20
for the
feet,
record, what?
20 feet in the rear. Is that what you're just asking about?
Right, and then a side of 5
Side
and a
of
combined 15
minimum of
between
5,
two?
combined 15.
And a front yard of 20.
I don't think with a flag lot there would be a front yard because you've got the drive.
Evan?
Well, it's interesting to sit here and consider all the ways this could be developed that would be in character with the neighborhood or not in character, because I can see it working both ways, because if you allowed this second duplex back there and its rear yard becomes what would normally be the side yard because of its placement, then you've created an anomaly in the neighborhood that might be out of character. At the same time, I could see it being developed in a way that everyone was very sensitive to the character of the neighborhood and make sure that that happens. But we don't get to decide that. I think all we're deciding is whether or not we think it's a good idea to have this second lot and the way it's configured. And we'll spend a lot of time trying to find I mean, like I said, we can find either the good or the bad of that potential development. We don't have a development plan before us. We don't know if it's 2 duplexes, 1 duplex, and so I think we just have to decide it on its merits and go through the relevant criteria and see if we can meet them or not.
I agree with that, Edmund. Jerry?
Okay, so on that point, first, the applicant ended with a question. Under Idaho law, landowners are not to have no right in continuation of existing zoning, and so to the extent there's a claim of any right to develop based on 50-foot wide lot, that changed as soon as the city changed the zoning ordinance to require 60-foot wide lots. If an application didn't exist at the time, then we don't have to consider whether the person had the right. And the Supreme Court's been pretty clear on that. We don't have to worry about that. So we just have a new, we have a lot and a request for a variance. And so we just have nothing to do but walk through the relevant criteria and standards. And as I'm sure you know where I'm going, we can't satisfy the first 4, as Rebecca pointed out. Before I mention that, I should note that I think that the character of the neighborhood issue is interesting, and I think it's been somewhat mischaracterized, or at least not fully characterized, and we should at least acknowledge that we are talking about a 100-year-old house on a lot that has existed for almost as long as the city has existed, and to suggest that changing this lot is more consistent with the character of the neighborhood is just kind of odd, given that the character of the neighborhood is, in effect, does include this house. We also should note, looking at the existing map of all the lots, as the applicant pointed out, are kind of all over the map in terms of width. 126 feet, 87 feet, 75 feet, 66 feet, 86 feet, several of 50 feet. So it is, in fact, a diverse neighborhood, and a neighborhood that's been diverse for quite a long time. So I'm not, while I understand the nature of the argument, I think there's two ways to make the same argument, and you can suggest that, in fact, allowing development of this lot would change the character of the existing neighborhood. But that said, as we look at the relevant criteria and standards, I just had it right before me, there are no, we cannot identify any special conditions or circumstances about this lot other than its size, and the mere size is not what has been anticipated by that, as is obvious by the second one, because even if we talk about the size of the lot as being a special condition, enforcing the zoning ordinance does not impose any undue hardship or deprive the property owner of any rights commonly owned by owners of other properties similarly situated. This is a person who has had a house for a long time and has enjoyed that house and has the capacity, even under the existing zoning ordinance, to use that house as it's used, to turn it into a duplex, to tear it down and build 3 townhomes, to build the flag lot. There are all sorts of things that can be done with this lot that keep the landowner from suffering an undue hardship. Number 3, to some extent, doesn't really apply here because there are, again, I don't think any special conditions or circumstances. And number 4, granting the variance does in fact confer a special privilege because you're giving this landowner the capacity to have a lot that's smaller than other undeveloped lots or potentially undeveloped lots. So I totally understand the purpose here and don't have an issue with why the landowner wants to do with what the landowner wants to do, but I don't know how we satisfy the first 4 criteria and standards. I don't think it's possible, given the facts before us.
Well, that's what makes it difficult when you have whatever we have before us, and this is a variance, and our job up here as the board is to be able to satisfy the relevant criteria, and we're not able to do that.
And I should note, again, and I've said this before, and the purpose of the variance provisions is to prevent imposition of the land use code from enacting a takings. It's a fundamental purpose. And that's clearly not the case here. We have a house that exists and can exist and a whole bunch of other uses that are totally legal that don't need our approval. There's no way in which this really would create a takings of the property.
Joe?
I agree with everything Jerry said. completely. In fact, I think when we go back to the comprehensive plan 2.7.2, I'm actually surprised that the city thinks that this actually is in character of the neighborhood, because that lot, just looking at that lot, it's clear what it is, what it has been historically, and changing it is changing it, especially to try to densify that lot. That's not its purpose. That was never its purpose. And so if you put a 50-foot lot next to it and you build, it's going to have to be an extremely tall house, because you'd have to have side yard setbacks. So the very things that she had mentioned, a house behind having to go up rather than out because of the shape of the property, it's 6 1/2 dozen another, whether you create a flag lot and a tall building on the back lot, or a skinny lot with a tall skinny building on the front of the lot, which would be on the west side of that particular house and would completely shadow it. And then we'd have this kind of the same house conditions to the adjacent house that the applicant actually pointed out. So I agree with Jerry. We can't satisfy these, and there's no rationale to try to satisfy something that just doesn't meet our 5 criteria.
Evan?
If I may, I think in my head I could satisfy number 4, and it's the same argument I've used in the past when people have bought property, owned it for a long time, and there's a change of regulations and things that would affect the value of their property negatively, and then, so I can see in number 4 that because they've owned the property since 1950, a lot of the changes in the code and that have gone does deprive them of some use of this property that they could have expected at the time they bought it, because they didn't perhaps petition this city council to not to take that away from them. To me, doesn't forever remove their right to perhaps develop that property in a way that they expected at the time they bought it. So that's, and I've used that before, and Jerry and I have gone back and forth on it, but I'm only talking about number 4. In my head, I can justify number 4.
Okay. So let's just take for granted that we could justify 4. How about 1, 2, and 3?
Well, even those aren't that big a stretch for me until we start talking about putting 2 duplexes back there. I don't see how that satisfies the retention of the existing character of the neighborhood, because one, of course, is going to be a street front building, and it doesn't necessarily have to be tall. It can be a small single family home, but the second structure back there, and then the amount of traffic involved to satisfy the normal operations of potentially 2 more families in the back of that lot, then I see that we have negatively, as Joe said, changed the neighborhood. So again, I can see a way to justify splitting that lot off. I can see my way through every one of these, but I would like it to. I wouldn't see it as being a viable thing if we were allowing 2 duplexes on that one lot, because now we've violated what the comprehensive plan, the recent revision of the comprehensive plan, really addressed in a big way, and that is not changing the characters of existing neighborhoods. So I'm stuck because I don't know how it's going to be developed, and I don't know. I agree with Jerry. I don't think you can put a second duplex back there. So in that case, I'm perfectly willing to let them have their lot as they could have in 1951.
No, I didn't say that. They can put a duplex back there.
But not 2 of them.
No, not 2 of them.
That's
but they can put 1 back.
Well, one is fine. That's around here. So I'm not against it. And if I felt comfortable in that belief that you could only build it out as it would have been done in 1951 with a single-family home or a duplex facing the street somewhere in that piece, that's fine by me. I think we can justify it. Well, like I say, they've owned it since 1950, and I'm rolling back the clock. I'm saying, yeah, in 1951, this is allowable.
Evan, is it okay if I ask a question of Rebecca that maybe...
Sure.
So, could you conceivably have 2 flagpole lots? I mean, this would be horrific, but with 2 20-foot rights-of-way next to each other that took up 40 feet on the west side of this parcel that both access 7,000 square foot lots. Could that happen?
So, just to clarify, two driveways into flagpole lots, and then the flags go this way.
No, no.
Exactly.
One would be deeper than the other, and one would be short. You'd have a smaller flag sitting inside of a larger flag. The second flagpole might be too long.
I don't think there's anything against the flagpole lots being located
In that fashion.
The drives being located right next to each other.
So conceivably they could put 2 back there, but I'm not sure if it would fit.
Bill? So Kit brought up an interesting part of the discussion. I don't know if you can really use that to justify these things, in that it's approving this because we're based on the fact we're faced with a worse alternative that is allowed. And that is the...
Well,
you know, and
that's... I'll stop. I want to say this about that. We can't... The tough thing about it is you can have all the what-ifs in the world. And unfortunately, as I see it, we've got to go through these criteria. And Evan, you may be able to clarify all of them. I can't. I don't know about Mark. I haven't asked him yet, but I'm going to. And so we can't go through the what ifs. What if this would happen, or what if that? Then that's not really what we're supposed to be doing anyway. We're supposed to be focusing on the variance. And
Well, Bill, my point, again, is to emphasize that there are a multitude of existing potential development opportunities right now without a variance,
that's right, that we have not a call on.
which pretty much makes it impossible to grant the variance. I mean, that's the way the system's set up.
Mark?
I can see one possibility of looking at number 1, special conditions, and that is the fact that there are 3 adjacent lots to this property to the west that all have 50-foot widths. If we look at the ones on Logan, there's a half block of lots with 50-foot widths. And none of those are allowed under the current code. So if you stretch that a bit, that's a special condition.
I think you would say those aren't similarly situated lots. I mean, again, so the variances provisions are designed to, when somebody simply cannot develop their lot because of something special about it, steep hillsides or a creek with creek setbacks, or it was originally just too narrow, and so you can't have the setback requirements. If you couldn't meet the 15-foot combined side yard setback, for example, without a variance. I mean, that's what the variance provisions, they're intended to take a person who otherwise could not, that's the undue hardship point, otherwise could not develop their lot in any way and allow them to develop it. But it's hard to identify how it's peculiar compared to similarly situated lots, that is, currently buildable lots, and how that creates an undue hardship. I mean, those are the two things. There's no way there's an undue hardship here.
Because they can build something.
They can build
now.
something. Heck, they could build a huge house on that thing. They could, I mean, if the market warranted it, but there's no hardship. They have an existing house that's been there, and they've enjoyed the lot for 113 years. The landowner has enjoyed it for 113 years. Anybody object to my making a motion?
Go ahead.
All right, well, I move for the foregoing reasons. And did you capture like what I said the first time? I can repeat it. That or for the reasons already stated, excuse me, but we can recapture those. That we deny the variance.
I second the motion.
Okay, there's a motion made by Jerry and a second by Joe to deny the variance.
And so the justification for the motion would be basically what I started with, so the comments I made at the beginning.
Okay?
And we'd repeat those for him.
Okay, we will start with the voting with Evan.
Nay.
I approve the notion.
I go yes, too.
Yes.
I
Okay, so you've got 4-1 to disapprove the variance. Jerry, you want to?
Sure.
Yes.
Oh, sorry, that was.
That number one, you cannot identify any special circumstances other than its mere size. Even if the size of the lot, no special conditions, would not impose undue.
I would, and the first one, other than its large size, rather than, because size, if it's too small, that's clearly a condition that satisfies the variance requirements, but.
And then you said number three doesn't satisfy, and number four that you can't confer a special privilege to the property over other smaller undeveloped lots.
Yeah, more or less. Does that seem, is the voters in favor, does that satisfy the?
Yeah. Doesn't mind, Joe.
Yes.
So we need a separate motion to approve the.
Yeah, we need to, I guess, so, well, when we deny a variance, we don't have to make a decision on the criteria because it was stated in why we denied it. So the relevant criteria is not effective. It's when you approve.
I know that the last variance that was denied, you did do the RCS.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I think they're inherent, they're part of the
Is it?
record,
Okay.
but if it's clear, then.
Okay. You want to make a motion for
Yeah,
it?
so the motion would be to approve the recorded justifications for denying the relevant criterion standards as stated by Ann.
And I'll second that as
Or as
well.
recorded by Ann.
Okay. We've got the motion by Jerry and the second by Joe. And you got that, Ann? Okay, and we'll start with Jerry.
Aye.
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 Nay.
Okay, 4-1. Okay, that closes the public hearing.